Today we're looking at the Osmo Action 5 after 1 year. Now this is probably the camera I have used the most over the past year. I use it a lot as a helmet cam, for time lapses, for vlogging. Now when I'm doing this kind of content, I'm typically only filming in 24p because that's just where I live, but I am filming in 10-bit. It depends on what the content is, if I'm filming in the standard bitrate mode or the high bitrate mode. Now this is the high bitrate mode. When I'm filming as a helmet cam, I typically use the standard bitrate because although I'm still filming in 10-bit and I'm still filming in log, I'm trying to get the most recording time I can. And a lot of the times I'm throwing the footage out, but occasionally there's a clip or two, or sometimes I'm using clips for my Sharing Fort Lauderdale channel where I'm using helmet cam footage, or I'm attaching the Osmo Action 5 to the top of my car using a car mount. And in those situations, I always feel like using the standard bitrate is the best, just to maximize my recording time out of my SD card. When it comes to SD cards, I actually use a 512 gigabyte SD card in this device because it gives me over 9 hours of shooting when using the standard recording modes. So a lot of the times, especially like for this review, I've brought this camera with me to Rome and on multiple trips. I have all of that footage from, regular 10-bit footage to time-lapse footage to photos, all on this card still. And I didn't have to put it on a SSD or anything like that, although I have, because I didn't really plan on leaving it on the card. But a lot of the times I have these long bike rides where nothing happened on that ride, so I can go delete the footage and it'll save me an hour, sometimes 2 hours, or maybe I'm deleting multiple days, and then all of a sudden I have all this free footage on this card and I can just go keep recording. This trip is a perfect example of I came here and I had about an hour of recording left. Even though I have much higher end cameras, this is just my favorite camera to use because this thing could fit in my pocket with the magnetic mount on the bottom. I could just plop it onto my selfie stick and go. Now, I love bringing the Osmo products with me when I'm on my bike rides, but typically when I'm home, I'm using the Osmo Action 5 as my helmet cam. Now, I'm using it, one, because it's much lighter than my Osmo Pocket 3 to use as a helmet cam, but also because of the close focus. To give you an example, this is me vlogging at night in the nighttime mode using the microphones built in to the Osmo Action 5. And as you can see, although I don't look crazy out of focus, I'm definitely not as sharp. Maybe I can go this far. Maybe I'm in focus. I don't know. Now, the cool part about the Osmo Action 5 is if you're holding it close enough to your mouth, you really don't need to use the wireless mic systems. But in a situation like this, or even when using the Osmo Pocket 3 where it's extended out like this, you really do need to use the wireless mics because it's starting to get further away from my mouth. And of course there's wind noise out here. So to get the best quality audio, not only makes it better quality, but then I can use voice isolation and get these cars that just passed me out of the audio completely. I mean, voice isolation has been a game changer when it comes to vlogging. Up until 2024, I had been using the GoPros as my action cameras because, quite frankly, they were the household name. But then after the Osmo Pocket 3 came out, and the fact that we can use wireless mics, have it go directly to the camera itself, I started using the Osmo Pocket 3 more than I was using my GoPros. I would only use the GoPros for really waterproof type activities. And then I got an Action 4. I loved how I could use the microphone with the Action 4, especially while I was doing strenuous activities like sports. And then I picked up the Action 5 when it came out, and it's quite frankly a fantastic camera. The smaller minor upgrades, like the better image quality or really more dynamic range, even though it uses the same sensor as the Action 4, made me really happy with this camera. But there are certain things that I didn't realize were going to be big upgrades for me. Specifically, the front-facing screen right here is bigger than what we had on the Action 4, so it is a little bit easier to see, especially as I'm using this thing to vlog right now, and it's on my selfie stick. The screen on the back, it's bigger. Again, easier to see. The battery life, I don't know if you can credit the Action 5 as having better battery life, but it does come with a bigger battery, which gives you increased battery life. So now we're in the subject tracking mode, and I have it actually on my selfie stick. And this is a mode that, quite frankly, I don't use too often, just because I like shooting in the 4K log 10-bit modes as it gives you the most color flexibility, where in this mode, it's really meant for you to just stick down on a tripod, I'll show you right here, and walk around with one angle of view. So here, I put it down right here. I'm gonna move it up like this so I can see. And now it's supposed to be tracking me. Now, it is tracking me a little bit around the frame, but this is just sitting on the ground. Most of the time I'm using the Osmo Action 5 in a configuration where, I'm just having it on my helmet cam, or I'm putting it on the selfie stick, and it's not really the best situation to use this tracking mode. For the most part, this thing needs to be either really high head height in order to get the most out of it, or you need to be using a tripod. And a lot of times I'm just not bringing that with the Action 5 Pro. Part of the reason I bring this camera with me everywhere is just because of how small this thing is. And so when it comes to tracking modes, I typically use the Osmo Pocket more than anything for that, just because it does physically track you on the gimbal. And then I can also get close enough to see what I'm filming. Right now, I can only see what I'm filming because I'm holding the selfie stick. But when I put it down like this and I walk away, sometimes it's not even really doing much of a job tracking. A good example is this. I'm right here and I'm walking around and I'm so wide, I don't even really think it's tracking that much. But then I get closer and I get in and it recognizes my body and it is trying to track as much as it can. But again, it's really great if you don't have anybody to film you and you want that look to your footage. But if you're trying to do that, I think the Osmo Pocket 3 or some of the new AI tracking gimbals are probably better for that. This is like a worst case scenario. Now, I don't use this mode too much, not because you need to either be in 2.7K or 1080p to make it work. It's really more the fact that I can't shoot in log. And being able to shoot in 10-bit log has been kind of the big reason why I've been using these Osmo Action cameras, because the 10-bit video, quite frankly, the quality's been fantastic. And as you can see, there is a little bit of a difference in the image quality and the colors in this mode. Now, the image quality is going to be a mixture of it not being, the 10-bit log signal, but also the fact that it is 2.7K versus 4K. Now, I've used this mode a few times for a few videos. It's interesting, but I just don't use it that much, especially because a lot of the times I either have the Osmo Action 5 just by itself, or I'm using a small little selfie stick like I'm using right now. It's just sitting on my selfie stick fully extended. And so I have to be really far back to even be able to get into frame. I don't even know if I'm in frame right now, but I'm assuming I'm farther enough back that you probably see most of my body. Now, as I noted earlier, I really use the 4K 24p mode in 10-bit log and the time-lapse modes as the main modes on this camera. I know there are other modes like the low light mode, of course, the subject tracking mode, but I typically don't use those because I have cameras in my arsenal that perform a little bit better for that. Especially when it comes to low light, I rather just use a mirrorless camera that performs better in low light. The low light mode on both this camera and the Osmo Pocket 3, you can't film in 10-bit. They are colored in. It is better than nothing. You're gonna get better image quality than shooting with this thing at log for the most part in low light situations. But a great example is like when I went to Times Square, I was better off filming in New York and Times Square in log than the low light mode because there was so much light, even though it was at night from all the billboards and the TV signs, that the log made the most sense. Now let's talk about slow motion. I typically don't use slow motion on this camera. I pretty much live in 24p as that's what I'm filming on most of my other cameras. Now, if I was in my action sports days when I first started using GoPros back over 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, back basically in 2010, 2011, I would be talking all about the slow motion modes. But for what I do when it comes to vlogging, client work, YouTube videos, for the most part, I just don't need slow-mo out of these devices, but it's nice to have. I've used it occasionally, but as I've said throughout this, for my specific use case with these cameras, I'm shooting 24p and I'm shooting with time lapses and I'm getting the raw photos from the time lapses if I want to get something a little bit more. My specific use case from these cameras are using the 24p, 30p if I need it for a specific gig, or the time-lapse modes, and being able to shoot raw photos for the time lapses if I want something a little bit more advanced than the 4K video that it'll spit out. But for me, it's the Action 5 has from the magnetic mount to the ease of use to fitting within the overall DJI ecosystem with not only my Osmo Pocket 3, but my DJI drones. The Action 5 fits really well within my camera ecosystem as an action cam, and making it really easy to use also makes it an easy decision to use all the time, especially with how small it is. But this whole thing has me thinking is, we're now here, the Osmo 360 has been announced, and there are a lot of reports that although it seems to be a decent camera, it's not quite as good as the competitors. But here's where I'm gonna give you all a little secret on what I think the Osmo 360 actually is. So the Osmo 360 has a 5K log mode that uses just one of the camera sensors and lenses, and I have a feeling that the Osmo 360 is going to be the perfect camera for someone like me who doesn't really shoot much 360 video, but does use action cameras all the time. And it gives me a camera that is a little bit higher resolution, hopefully, in the end, than the Action 5 Pro, since the Action 5 Pro, it does top out at 4K, but also gives me, or you, 360 when you need it. And that's why I think, you know, between the overheating we're hearing about, the stitching and the software, I think the Osmo 360 is going to be that really great all-in-one camera for specific content creators, filmmakers who are in a position like me, who just want one device that maybe can do all that and we don't use it all the time. So if you have any questions that I didn't cover in today's video, let me know in the comments below. And if you got knowledge and value out of today's video, please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell to keep up to date with the latest videos on the channel. Until next time, my name is Chef Fagien. Thank you for joining me as always, and I will catch you in the next video.